Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests from Slovenia and the UK, members of the British-Slovenian Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to another ET with Reason. We are here today in Maribor, in Beka Studio, to make this experience of online webinars more interesting for you. And this, of course, would not have been possible without our partners and sponsors, which are Triglav, Src, Nova KBM, Unistar Pro, and the British Embassy in Ljubljana. So, grab your cup of tea or coffee, sit back and enjoy 1.5 hours of discussion on cyber security and cyber threats. We've seen a huge transformation of digital going online in the last 8 to 9 months since COVID. This has also increased the cyber threats today in government and in business. And we will start with government this morning. I will say good morning to 2 ambassadors we have with us. Tiffany Sadler, the British ambassador to Slovenia, good morning. Your Excellency, and Tadej Rupel, ambassador and also National Coordinator for External Aspects of Digitalization, AI and Cybersecurity at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia. And I will first go to Your Excellency, Ms. Sadler. Good morning. Do we hear you?
Good morning, Barbara. I hope you can hear me.
Ms. Sadler, cyber threats have become a #1 risk in national security. How is this in the UK, and what is the UK strategy on cybersecurity?
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for giving me the chance to speak today. So first of all, dobrodošli to everyone from a slightly dull morning here in Ljubljana. I don't know how it is in Maribor, Barbara, but certainly not a very dull topic that we're talking about today. So this issue of free, open, peaceful and secure cyberspace is absolutely central to our economies and our societies. And I think, as you mentioned, Barbara, if COVID has taught us anything, first of all, it's that tech is becoming more and more important in our lives, and hence cybersecurity a more and more important issue for us all. But also that threats can come from unexpected places. So definitely something for us to think about. And the other reason why I think this issue is so topical and important for us to talk about is that for me, Slovenia and the UK are such natural partners in this area. And I want to touch on that a little bit this morning as well. So I'm going to talk about 3 things briefly. First of all, how and why we in the UK see cyber as important. And I'll touch on our national cyber security strategy. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our National Cyber Security Centre, which is quite an interesting model, and I want to share a little bit about that with you. And then lastly, I thought I would talk a little bit about the commercial opportunities for us to work together, particularly for you as businesses, as a business audience. So first of all, how and why does the UK see cyber as important? And what is our National Cyber Security Strategy? So our strategy covers 2016 to 21, so until next year. And we developed it in recognition that the cyber threat is what we call a tier 1 threat to UK interests. So right at the top are priorities. And what does the National Cyber Security Strategy focus on? Action in 3 areas, what I'm going to call the 3 Ds. And the first of those is about defending. So the strategy is there to defend the UK against evolving threats, and also, very importantly, to respond to live incidents as they happen. The second D is to deter. So for us, this is about making the UK a hard target for all forms of aggressors, so that they see the UK as a difficult place in which to do cyber. And then lastly, the third D is around develop. So this is reflecting the fact that the threats here are continually evolving, and we need to continually innovate and develop our response to those threats. It's about meeting and overcoming future challenges. So alongside the 3 Ds of what the National Cybersecurity Strategy sets out as actions, 3 sets of key stakeholders. And firstly, and most importantly, it's about individuals. It's about what individuals do in this area to protect themselves. There's a responsibility on all individuals, and we're very clear on that in our strategy. The second set of stakeholders is businesses and organizations, and that's about a responsibility for businesses to safeguard their own assets, to take actions, and to where they are selling products, to make sure that security is integrated into those products. And the third set of stakeholders is obviously government. And for us, this is about the government having a primary duty to defend UK nationals in this area, but also as a big holder of data, we have a responsibility to protect that data, and as a provider of services to protect those services. There's also a role for us on advising and informing as government, and also a clear international role. And I'm very pleased to be sharing the platform with our Ambassador Rupel this morning, because as I say, this is an area where I think the UK and Slovenia can work together in international fora and bilaterally as well. I said I'd touch briefly on the National Cybersecurity Centre. So we set this up in 2016. It's our central body to coordinate action at a national level on cybersecurity. And the first thing that they do is to manage incidents as and when they happen. And of course, that's a very important activity to do, but there's also a big role that the National Cybersecurity Centre play as a centre of expertise. And I mentioned advice, giving advice to individuals. If you look at the National Cybersecurity Centre website, you'll see there's advice there for all individuals and families on what to do on cyber, but also providing more tailored advice for more sophisticated bodies, whether that be regulators, other governments, whether it be talking to professionals. But it goes a little bit further than that advice-giving role. So the National Cybersecurity Centre is a centre of expertise. And that means that by building on analysis and understanding of the threats that are out there, the national cybersecurity can support a thriving cyber industry. So there's a very key part here for government to work in coordination with the private sector as that centre of innovation, that centre of expertise, that centre of development. And the National Cybersecurity Centre is a public-facing body, of course, and I've talked about its advice-giving role, I've talked about its work with business. But its parent body is the Government Centre for Communications. So it's able to draw on necessary secret intelligence as well to bring together that public-facing role and also that secret intelligence role with our world-class technical expertise in this area. So that's a little bit about our strategy and a little bit about the NCSC and what that does. I just wanted to touch on the ways that we might work together commercially in the commercial field as well. And here I switch slightly into sales mode, and I hope you will forgive me for that. But just to stress that the UK, along with the US and Israel, we're really a global leader in cyber. And that's partly about our scale. So there's over 1,000 companies that are registered in the UK, 1,000 companies registered in the UK. And the UK's cyber exports are worth more than 2 billion a year. So just to give you a sense of the scale and the importance of it to our economy and for us on a global stage. It's also a sector that's growing very rapidly. So just a couple of stats on that. The number of companies that are active in the cyber industry in the UK is up by over 40% in the last 2 years. And similarly, if you look at the numbers that are employed as well in terms of FTEs, a similar number rising by 40% over 2 years. So it's a growing sector. It's a big sector in the UK. And just to touch on the different areas that we have world-class expertise, that's on cyber services, on standards accreditation, network security, encryption, and then lastly, threat intelligence and monitoring. And we have Darktrace speaking later to give you an example of what we do in that field. So I will pause there. I hope I've given you an overview of the policy and commercial landscape in the UK. And I'm going to hand over to Ambassador Rupel, who as recent ambassador in London, has even more expertise than me, perhaps, on that policy and commercial landscape in the UK. So looking forward very much to listening to him. And beyond that, just to say a very happy Christmas from me to everyone and best wishes for a very successful event.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. You mentioned international rule and cooperation. With this, I would kindly invite Ambassador Rupel to give us the point of view of Slovenia on cyber and these 2 points. Good morning, Ambassador Rupel.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me. Dobro jutro vsem skupaj. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to shortly address you and say a few words about Slovenian priorities on cybersecurity. As we all know, cyber threats environment is continuously evolving, and with it, the severity of malicious cyber activities. Cybersecurity is proving to be one of the main challenges globally, creating huge vulnerabilities, exposure, and potential of disruption to our societies. Enhanced cyber resilience and better cyber crisis response requires further attention, as well as more persistent engagement at all levels. COVID-19 has further exposed the potential of possible damage to the economy and even loss of life. Cybersecurity is therefore on the top of the Slovenian priorities, as it is in many other countries as well. In recent years, Slovenia has been actively strengthening its cybersecurity framework, which was explicitly highlighted in the resolution of our national security strategy from last year. Only stable, transparent, open, free, and secure cyber environment and digital infrastructure will enable a normal functioning of society, our businesses, and essential public services. Cybersecurity will be also one of our main priorities during the presidency to the Council of the European Union in the second half of 2021, so in half-year time. Slovenia strongly believes that the European Union, as well as Europe as a whole, needs further strengthening of resilience of our societies by arranging for plans of appropriate actions in case of large-scale cyber attacks. Slovenia remains committed to push forward and reinforce Europe's digital sovereignty, including through the norms and rules of responsible state behavior and the promotion of the applicability of the existing international law. We see the EU as an important force for peaceful relations, conflict prevention, and greater stability in cyberspace. Let me also briefly mention the security of 5G networks. 5G will form the future backbone of our societies and economies, connecting billions of objects and systems, including in critical sectors such as energy, transport, banking, and health, as well as industrial control system carrying sensitive information. Careful introduction of these new technologies should be done prudently. I want to emphasize also that the partnership and cooperation with like-minded countries on building resilient cybersecurity and to prevent malicious cyber activities are of paramount importance for a success. Slovenia wishes to build common cybersecurity resilience in Europe together with the United Kingdom. As already mentioned by Ambassador Sadler, our common efforts should be aimed to upgrade this relationship on bilateral level as well as with international organizations we all belong, such as NATO, United Nations, OSCE, and others. As developed countries, we have to promote prosperity and well-being, and at the same time tackle the greatest challenges of our time. This can be achieved by acting together and defending our common values. We need to protect the cornerstones of our society, which are peace, security, stability, democracy, and prosperity. To conclude, we should have the ability and desire to shape global cybersecurity rules together and be able to take actions for cybersecurity protection. Our aim should be to reach cyber maturity, to have open, secure, and reliable cyberspace. So thank you for your attention and wishing you all as well Merry Christmas and all the best in mask-free 2021, I hope so. Thank you. Back to you, Barbara. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rupel. Thank you both ambassadors. We will now move from government to business. And the next two presentations are from two providers of cybersecurity, Darktrace, a British company, and Src, a Slovenian company. And it is my privilege this morning to first introduce Andrew Tsonchev, Director of Technology from Darktrace, which, by the way, is a company founded just 7 years ago by some mathematicians from the University of Cambridge, the first one to develop AI for cybersecurity, and today they have offices in 44 countries globally and over 1,300 employees. Good morning, Andrew. Are you with us?
Good morning.
Morning.
I am, yes. Ready to be here, thank you.
The floor is yours. Please present us your lessons learned during COVID on cyber.
Thank you. I'm sharing a presentation which I hope you can see. So I'm going to take 10 minutes here to talk a little bit about the pandemic and the work we did with our customers during it and some of the lessons learned about defensive technology that we can draw from the experience of this year, which has been obviously an unprecedented and challenging year for cyber defense. So there's a few important trends to talk about. Obviously, one of the most significant is the rise in the level of collaborative SaaS tools that businesses have been using, largely driven by the shift to remote work that we've all experienced. And there are many different stats for this. I think my favorite one is from Satya Nadella, who said that he estimated that companies carried out 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months, something like that. And you can see some numbers here. The actual numbers don't matter that much, but the essential thing is that we rapidly pivoted the degree to which we were leveraging systems like Zoom for collaboration. And obviously that has real important implications for cyber defense, both on the defensive and the offensive side. On the offensive side, it produced a new type of attack surface for threat actors to exploit. And on the defensive side, it really changed the nature of our businesses in terms of what security teams are being asked to protect. And this has been very challenging. Throughout the year, a lot of the people we work with moved from a situation where their business that they had to defend was fairly well understood and traditional in the digital sense, that it was a network with on-premise devices contained to a number of geographical sites, and it moved and pivoted quite quickly to this very diverse, very fragmented ecosystem with their data and their employees' fingerprints, digital fingerprints, if you like, spread out across all these different platforms. And monitoring that and detecting movement across that is very challenging. So here's a few highlights from some of the top threat trends throughout this period. Now, one of the things that you can see here is, in some cases, it's not that different to normal. And this is important in that throughout this period of 2020, what we really saw was more a pivoting of the immediate opportunities and the ways attackers would enter organizations rather than a deeper shift in what they're trying to do. Ransomware remains the most effective way to monetize an attack on a company. The sorts of events that happen when an attack plays out inside an organization in terms of lateral movement remain largely the same. What changed was the way attackers would get into the organizations, and compromising and hijacking those SaaS accounts was a really important part of that. And a shift to an attack on identity. Obviously, there was a massive surge in email attacks. That's what you'd expect. And attackers pivoted to using the most relevant topics, which at the minute have been COVID-based social engineering rather than, say, payment fraud or financial fraud. But what they did once they got inside organizations is the same as it always has been. One of the significant trends, which isn't on this slide, has been the resurgence in opportunistic perimeter-based attacks. And what I mean by that is a large number of the attacks we saw this year in our customers were focused on exploiting the internet-facing infrastructure that companies very quickly stood up in March and April and May, when they were pivoting to enabling remote work. And to what you'd expect, you suddenly have devices placed vulnerably on the internet to enable your workers to connect in from their home offices. And that provided new ways into the business for attackers, as you'd expect. So the concept, stepping back from this, that we've been very focused on is, if you take seriously the idea that organizations are now dynamic and remote, and that this is staying with us, then you have to think about how you protect the dynamic workforce of a business rather than how you protect the infrastructure of the business. We fully believe that the new patterns of work are here to stay, and you have to deal with these new challenges. These challenges involve people working in unsecured environments in their homes. It involves fragmented workplaces. It involves employees working from different locations. And it involves all sorts of use of third-party services for sharing of data in a way that you don't, in advance and prescriptively, know exactly how that will look until it happens. And so protecting this is the new challenge, really. It's figuring out how we evolve our defensive strategies to embrace that and to be agile enough to move with this high rate of change. So we were very kind of thrilled to see that throughout this year, our technology was able to perform very well with this. And the key principle I want to kind of give you here is the way that machine learning and AI-based defensive strategies are agile in the way that you need them to be to deal with this change. So if you have a traditional mindset to cyber defense, it's very much rigid and set in stone. And it starts from a position of, here are the ways in which someone will break into my organization. This is the nature of my organization. This is how business as usual looks. And this is how I would understand and spot a disruption to that. And for a lot of companies, that kind of knowledge set has been built up over 5 years. And when you rapidly change the way the organization works, you tear up that playbook overnight and you throw it out. And you very quickly have to figure out how you can understand what normal looks like for this business when you don't know anymore, because the sort of the standard of play that you had expected has gone. And this is what machine learning is very good at. So what we try to do with organizations is give them the technological capability to have a constantly learning and adapting defensive strategy, so that they have technology which is machine learning power that sits inside the organization, learns what employees are doing and evolves with that change. So if the business pivots and if everyone starts collaborating on Zoom and using SharePoint more, then you need your defensive mindset to move with that and to adapt and to say, okay, this is the new normal for the business. And so all the work we do is to give companies an evolving sense of that new normal that allows them to stay protected during periods of change like we saw this year. And this year has been a magnification of that, but the basic principle always holds, which is that companies evolve and transform much faster than they used to, and the threat landscape evolves and transitions much faster than it used to. So you don't have the luxury of having static defenses. You need dynamic defenses inside the business. So to give you a very brief overview of what this looks like from our technology's point of view and what we are doing with thousands of customers in the UK and Slovenia around the world, is to deploy machine learning that learns from the data of your employees inside the business. So we call this an immune system approach. And the idea is to train technology to have an understanding of what normal looks like inside the business and then be able to fight back. So there's 3 components to this, the way this works. One, in the top left there, which we call the enterprise immune system, is to detect. So this is to take the data of everything that's going on inside the business, learn models of what normal looks like, and then tell the security team when a change happens that is malicious, when an attacker has got inside SharePoint or M365, whatever it is. The second is to investigate that and automate the way that security teams do their work, because dealing with the sheer number of threats, especially during a period of time of change, is incredibly overwhelming for most companies. And the third is to automatically respond. And this is where the immune system idea really comes in here, which is that we want to give companies an ability to dynamically fight back automatically against threats that are in their environment, rather than manually telling someone, hey, it looks like you might have ransomware, we want to neutralize and disrupt in-progress attacks automatically. And we do this across the full range of environments of the business, crucially, all those third-party cloud environments that have become so important today. So the goal here is really saving time. So that investigation piece I talked about is so important. What we try to do for our customers is to give them an automated layer inside the business that is investigating and triaging all the potential security events that are coming up, so that you present to the security team of a company fully processed security incident with a high degree of fidelity around how critical this is and what all the pieces are, rather than asking them to do all this manual work. And this ability to save time has been crucial during the pandemic and during periods of high disruption. So, for example, a really important test of this was back in March. A number of our customers were hit with ABT41, which was a very serious nation-state attack. It was a really good proof point for the ability of our AI to identify quite serious nation-state activity in networks in the midst of all this change, automatically investigate that and surface back to the customer a complete instant report of what was going on inside that environment. So this is really the idea that we've been championing for about 7 years now, which is autonomous, self-learning detection and response and defense. And I hope it makes sense to you why we believe that 2020 has really shown that those traditional, more static ways of thinking about defending organizations that were already challenged have really shown their weakness during this period. And we see 2020 as somewhat of a coming of age in the industry of the importance of these sorts of more dynamic and self-learning approaches to defense. So thank you. That's all I wanted to share with you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And let me invite our next speaker, who will talk about how to facilitate cybersecurity with machine learning to protect the enterprise. Simon Simčić from CERT. Simon, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Today I will discuss how to address cybersecurity with machine learning. So if we just start to, let's say, set up a common ground on what cybersecurity actually is, it's a practice of defending the enterprise, not something that you do once, but something that we need to do over and over again. And with cybersecurity, we need to address how to assure integrity, confidentiality, and availability. So we need to ensure that information is trustworthy, that we limit the access to information to just the people who need it, and that we assure reliable access to the information, so it's available. So in that sense, we have to know what we are defending, what is critical for our, and what vulnerabilities are present. So we need to address patch management, life cycle of information systems, which has been shown, which has shown in the last year to be very important, because a number of vulnerabilities came out. We needed to address, we needed to change, and it was a very much of a shift, really, because to remote workforce, like Andrew before me said, because we needed to address the situation where not all of the people are in the office anymore, but they are dynamically around. They're everywhere. They're home. They're at home mainly, and we couldn't really control what their machines were doing. So we needed to address with certain tools how to control their machines, or how to control what they're doing. So that was also a very big shift for us, because the visibility, the IT environment became very much more dynamic than it was before, and monitoring for security incidents was even harder than before. So in that sense also, the key challenges that basically did not change from the pre-COVID era, but let's say they also somehow became very much more apparent. And these are, I would like to present to you the pressures that IT managers face is very much the same as it was. So it was a lack of staff, lack of expertise. The demand for keeping the lights on became even much more apparent because we have come to depend on the information systems much more. The regulatory demands did not change, and all of the risks that are present are still there. And also there was a lack of process on how to address security incidents and cybersecurity. So there are also the external factors that became much more apparent. So it was the velocity of attacks. The volume of data has increased because the pressure on the IT systems has increased, and the attack techniques that constantly evolved and became ever different. So one attack does not help you address another attack tomorrow, and that means that the threats have become more sophisticated. And what we can do is to mitigate all this, use different tools, and we have to use much more tools than we had 2 or 3 years ago. And these tools usually require some new skills, some ever-evolving skills, and novel techniques like machine learning, which we have come to depend on in the last year, especially as we are also a Darktrace customer and a Darktrace partner. So we help implement the Darktrace solutions, and I will talk to you how can we use the machine learning techniques to help the security teams in the enterprise. So we can address the skill shortage that comes from lack of staff and a lack of time, because it also we can't automate analysis of a security incident, because machine learning can do this much quickly than a real analyst or a real person could do. And it can also automate the responses, because it can automatically respond to security incidents by either blocking or limiting. Sorry about that. And it can limit the security. It can automate response and address the automated attacks as well, not just the triggered ones. And it can adapt to the changing environment, because it can constantly monitor and learn about what is normal for an environment. And if we compare that to traditional SIM systems, it's not really dependent on sensor data, because it usually ingests traffic. But in that sense, it's also not aware of the audit events. So what a traditional rule-based SIM system is. So it's good for detecting anomalies in that sense and zero-day attacks, but it's good with known threats. On the other hand, SIM is known with good threats and known attacks. It can also be used for reporting over different sources of information, but it has static limits, which on the other hand, network traffic analysis machines with machine learning do not, because they analyze every entity by itself and compare and define its baseline. And it also gives you an insight into traffic, not just the description of traffic like some usual, let's say, traditional mechanisms like NetFlow can. And it also adjusts the threshold. So the normal for it is ever shifting and ever changing. So it's really something that can help you address threats quickly and easily. And that was my presentation for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. We see that you had a little bit of an cyber
Yes,
attack.
it was. Sorry about that.
In the middle.
It was.
But that's
yes.
normal these days. It's normality these days. Thank you very much, Simon and Andrew. So, ladies and gentlemen, we heard representatives from the government. We heard representatives that provide cybersecurity solutions. We will now move to our panel discussion, where we will hear from companies on how they deal with cybersecurity, cyber attacks. And with this, I will give the podium to our moderator, Miha Žerko, who's the president of the British-Slovenian Chamber of Commerce and also the CEO of CERT. The word is yours, Miha.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I can see myself on the screen and you walking away. Great. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. And I'd like to welcome all of our panelists. We have 6 of them today. I will present them shortly. So the first one is Mr. Ajtač Ajdin from NKBM. The second one is Mr. Uroš Svete from Ministry of Public Affairs, Slovenia. The third one is Samo Kumar from IBM. The fourth one, Mr. Peter Filip Jakobič from Triglav. Mr. Ferenc Biro from PwC, and Primož Kučić from Telekom. Gentlemen, welcome, and I hope you are ready. Good morning again. Gentlemen, are you ready? Okay.
Good morning. Yes.
Okay. Finally, we see you. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So I sent you some questions beforehand. So since we're not doing this face-to-face, let's do a lightning round. And I'd like to ask you to listen carefully to the questions I'm about to ask the first person, and then I'm going to repeat the questions to all of you, because you will be scored, of course. So my first set of questions will go to Mr. Ajtač Ajdin from NKBM, and the rest will follow up with the same questions. So how many of these accounts do you own? Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter? You know, just a number.
4.
4. Okay. And how many different passwords do you... Sorry?
I'm not a Twitter fan. I don't like Twitter, so I never use it.
Yeah, you're not a politician. Yes, exactly. How many different passwords do you use for these accounts?
Like around, but if you think about it, the common ones, usually I use 2-3 sets of passwords, but I change them. Overall, it's around 10 different variations.
That's good. Okay. Do you use your phone as an e-wallet? So as a banker, I'm guessing I know the answer to this question.
Actually, you would be surprised. No, I'm not.
That is very interesting. Okay. Do you have a cover on the camera of your laptop so that you only open it when you have a video conference?
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question, how many times a year do you change your password to enter your laptop, if at all?
I mean, it's the company laptop, so I change it every 6 months.
Good. Thank you. On to the next person. Thank you very much. Mr. Uroš Svete, can you please answer the same question? So the number of social media accounts that you own.
I own actually 4 of them, so I don't use Instagram.
Okay, 4. Not a fan of photographs. Okay, and then how many different passwords?
3 of them.
3. Okay. And do you have an e-wallet on your phone?
And I, as my forerunner said, yes. Yes, I have.
You do. Okay. And the cover on your laptop?
No.
No.
I haven't. No.
Okay. And how many times a year do you change your password?
I also have a business laptop, so every 3 months.
That's great. Okay, so let's see how they do things at IBM. Mr. Kumar, same questions?
Actually, I'm a representative of a younger generation, so I own all 5 accounts.
And more, probably.
Even though I don't use Twitter, I have an account. So,
okay.
Yeah, 5.
And then number of passwords, same one, different ones?
5 different ones. I actually use 1Password. This is a software that, delivers a different password for every account. So 5 different.
Being pretty secure. Do you use an e-wallet?
Yeah, sure.
Of course, who doesn't? And do you cover your camera on your laptop?
No, I actually have a Mac, so who would cover a camera on a Mac? That would be just outrageous.
It just looks too beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
And do you change your passwords frequently?
Yeah, it's a company computer, so every 3 months it's a company policy.
Okay, thank you, Samo. So if we move on to Zavarovalnica Triglav, Mr. Jakopic, same questions.
Hello. So my answers are 4, 3, yes, no, and every 3 months.
Whoa! I can't write this fast. So 4, 4. That's good.
Accounts,
3. Okay.
Yeah,
3. Yes. You have an e-wallet.
Wallet. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then you don't have a cover for the camera.
No.
And every 3 months. Okay. Good. Thank you. That was very efficient. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Biro. How are things done at PwC?
So I do have a Gmail account and a LinkedIn one, but not the rest.
Okay.
I do cover the camera of my laptop.
Okay.
It's a company laptop, so I change passwords every 30 days. So it gives roughly 12 in a year.
Okay.
I do have an e-wallet, but with a dedicated account to it. So the funds are fairly limited that can be accessed if the phone is stolen or compromised.
Okay.
And I have separate passwords for all of these.
Good to know. Okay, thank you. And the last but not least, Mr. Kučić from Telecom.
Good morning to everyone.
Morning.
I have free use too. How many different passwords I have for every account? I have different passwords. Sometimes it's hard to remember. I use e-wallet and I have a cover for camera, but nowadays I do not cover it because I'm on the phone calls from morning to evening.
All the time.
So yes, and I change my password twice a year.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I'll be trying to do some on-the-fly maths as we speak. Hopefully it will work out. If not, then I have here my little helpers and they will help me. So let's start the conversation. And I will start with Mr. Aydin again. So gentlemen, I apologize beforehand because I Googled you last night. So at the risk of creeping you out, I will, before I address each one, I will tell you what I learned about you before, when I was preparing for this panel. So, Mr. Aydin, congratulations. You finished your Data Science Essentials course at Berkeley this year.
That's true.
Yes. And you keep your Instagram account private, so I have no idea what's happening there. But your Facebook account, your Facebook account is more open, and I don't know if you know that, we have 20 mutual friends. Exactly.
Yeah, that's why you can see.
Who knew? Okay.
We went to the same MBA school, that's why.
Exactly. So I hope I didn't creep you out too much, but still, how big of a threat do cyber attacks represent for your company, especially since financial services is one of the industries that is at the forefront of hackers?
I like to structure things so it's easier to tackle. So how I see these threats are like actually three parts. It's like mainly who are targeted. It's the customers, it's the staff, and it's the network, the cloud, and the platform. So if you dissect into these three segments, it's easier to deep dive and find a solution. Of course, there are some similarities. Almost the same attacks happen to some of the those, either two of them or three of them. But when you dissect into these, it's easier to handle, easier to predict the risk, and also prepare for that. If I deep dive into those, for instance, the customer side, it's reputationally it's very high risk, but financially it's low risk for the company because you cannot do much. It's the customer, if they got this phishing, if they got this social engineering, if they lose their password, those kind of things, you cannot do too much. We are also investing into this a lot with our partners on our own, trying to educate in all the channels we have, but it's mainly on the customer side. So that is one dimension. The other part is the staff. This is also goes into two sub-segments. If it's intentional, it's a huge risk for financial and also reputational. If it's also like unintentional, they behave like customers. So they might be socially engineered, or they got some malware onto their personal gadgets. So that becomes like a customer, and it's also highly reputational, but lower financial risk. On the platform, network, cloud, it's less reputational, especially on the like DDoS, ransomware stuff. You don't publicly go out and say, unless it's leaked, usually it's not leaked. The reputational risk is more contained, but the financial risk is huge. If you got the ransomware affecting many layers in your network, you might be facing a lot of financial impact. Similar stuff for DDoS. If you are also that has some reputational stuff, but this is how I categorize them, and this is how we tackle them. So all of them have different levels of risk in different levels of in different categories, but we tackle them all, or we at least to do our best to tackle them all.
That's great. So apparently the financial industry, the banking industry incurred the most cybercrime costs in 2018-19. Probably the same will happen this year. Do you agree with that? Do you have a number which your bank, the damages that might incur in a year?
We have very strict risk assessment and risk governance policies, and also it is executed as well. It's not like only on the paper. So we categorize, but it's always like likelihood and the impact and the residual impact after you implement all the measures. So I can only talk about residual impact, and we feel quite strong because with every threat on our own, we partner with the state-of-the-art solution providers. So residual risk, I wouldn't say it's a fraction of our revenue or anything that could damage us. This being said, it's not like 100%. It's always, there is a likelihood 1 in a billion that can hurt you quite significantly. Those things, you have to look at the expected value. So when I look at the expected value of the residual risk, it's not that material. Of course, to get there, you have to implement a lot of solutions, and you have to invest a lot.
Thank you for your answers so far. Okay, onwards to Mr. Svete. So, Mr. Uroš Svete, you're the director at the Information Security Administration. So basically, You protect our country from cyber attacks. So on top of that, I know that you were very sad when Maradona died. And
that's right.
Yes, and you were a strong advocate of controlling drones, especially in military use. And I learned that from your Twitter account, just so you know. And then I stopped. So don't be too worried.
Okay.
So I've read some statistics, and they say that the Pentagon in the United States, that they get 10 million cyber attacks per day. So this is a pretty big threat, and I'm guessing since you are protecting, or at the forefront of protecting our country, what are the numbers like for Slovenia? How does Slovenia address this ever more important issue?
Thank you very much for your question. Actually, we are just one of the ecosystem, one part of the ecosystem in Slovenia, of course, covering the cybersecurity, and we are practically, our administration is not dealing with hands-on incident handling, but of course we are responsible for making an overview how really threatened is Slovenia as a whole country and a whole nation. So we are gathering the information about the incidents from our computer incident response teams. So we have actually two of them in Slovenia. One is national CERT, and the second one is governmental CERT at the Ministry of Public Administration. And then we have, of course, special hands-on operational capabilities at different ministries like Ministry of Defense and etc. Definitely the number of the incidents, of course, is not so big that you mentioned from the case of the US, but that of course doesn't mean that in Slovenia we really have maybe the threat, cyber threat, that is actually in Slovenia lower than in other countries. I mean, there is of course a question even what kind of the threats we are talking about. So if we are talking about phishing, if we are talking about let's say spamming, then we have every day several hundred or even not several thousand cases of them. But of course, if we are talking about much more, let's say, dangerous incidents like advanced persistent threats, like ransomware, then of course the number of these cases is lower. So what is my point is that we of course don't have just to take into the account the quantitative approach to the incidents, but we really have to be focused on the qualitative way. So what kind of the incidents we are talking about, and how dangerous they are for persons, for individuals, and for the entire nation or country.
So Verizon did a survey, and they found out that 71% of breaches are financially motivated, while 25% were motivated by espionage. So as a representative of the government, are you more focused on espionage or basically any kind of cyber attack?
We are focused on any kind of cyber attacks. So we are actually covering the incidents which are, of course, targeted into the, let's say, critical infrastructure. So as you know, when we implemented the NIS directive in Slovenia, so the government declared essential service providers, which are of course obliged to report for any kind of incidents to national CERT, and we have of course other stakeholders who are obliged to report. So I can say that we are more focused on cyber espionage, but we are definitely take care of the incidents which are happening in the business, in the critical infrastructure, or essential service providers as well. So I will not prevail that we maybe are more focused to those who are who are focusing into the let's say state authorities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sete. Okay, onwards to see what the big blue is doing, Mr. Kumar. So, as you said yourself, you're a representative of a younger generation. So, I know that you loved the Managers Association concert last year. I hope the stag party at Socha Fun Park was fun. And I hope your burpees and pull-ups are better at the end of this year than at the beginning, because you're a CrossFit fanatic. And you like to drink whiskey with your steak.
Yeah, this is what my
This is all
Instagram
correct. Okay. Actually, your company published this survey that the average life cycle of a security breach was 314 days, while it took 260 days on average for companies to detect one. So it took 108 days from breach to containment. What are IBM's tools, approaches, and advice in these topics?
Well, you know, on one hand, we can talk about technology. On the other hand, we can talk about people. Technology-wise, IBM always invests a lot in security. Security basically is one of the most important pillars in our company. I think that more than 8,000 people work in security for our clients, and it's a 3 billion revenue per year division. So technology-wise, I think we are up there, one of the biggest vendors. But if you want to provide a security in a company, and if you want to, you know, like you mentioned, the breaches, when are they expected, when are they detected, etc. You also have to have policies in place, and people need to be educated. For example, I know that in IBM, at least this year, even more than previous years, we invest a lot in the education of our employees, so that the breaches wouldn't even happen, because the weak point in a lot of times are we, employees, from ransomwares, you know, phishing emails, etc. And investing in education, I think, is one of the important pillars. I don't know what exactly did you mean in terms of the number of days when the attacks happen, when it is detected, etc. So this is different from company to company. It reflects on their ability to have a response to the attack. You know, IBM is, at least this year, basically the hot stuff is the response team that we have, the incident response team in our SOC centers. So this is basically one of the pillars that is gaining a lot of traction. So services department, not just the IT itself, with the products, with technology, etc. So would you say that we will invest a lot in the future in security as well? So
would you say that it's more important? Which part is more important, to detect the incident as early as possible, or that once detected, that it's managed and neutralized as soon as possible? You can't say both, because everyone can say that.
Yeah, it's like a chicken and an egg debate. You know, it's always it's a difficult question. In my opinion, you cannot prevent the attack, right? There is always a juggle between the user experience, because we're getting a lot more digital than we did in the years. So if you have too strict rules and want to prevent everything, the user experience will, you know, adequately be not to a level you want it to be. So I would say to detect it as early as possible and then act on it. So you cannot prevent it. That's a fact.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Okay, onwards to Mr. Jakopic from Triglav Insurance. So 62% of businesses experienced phishing and social engineering attacks. You working in insurance, you must be concerned with that number. I know that your company is probably the first insurance company in Slovenia that offers a sort of cybersecurity insurance. And out of all the guests that we have today, I must say you're the most secretive. I didn't learn about you a lot online, so good job. What I have a hunch is that you like mountains. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. Where did you find it? I mean,
I Googled it, and there were some articles about you and mountain huts.
Miha, maybe because I work for Zbornica Triglav, and Triglav is the highest mountain in Slovenia.
Yeah.
So maybe
then you have to love mountains.
Yes. Artificial intelligence told you that. Okay.
Might be. But good job on keeping your identity secure online.
Thank you.
So how is fraud and identity theft, how important is that for your insurance company?
Yeah, well, on one hand, we do a lot of things together with our cybersecurity team. What Samo told before me, and also Andrew before. So on all of these SOTS centers and activity around it, and we tried to implement this in our product, because as you mentioned, Miha, 2 years ago, Triglav was the first in Slovenian market who launched the cyber insurance product. And what you mentioned before, so all kind of frauds, identity theft, is also covered due to, I mean, in this our standard policy. So we take care a lot. We focus on the trends on the market. We see what's happening in order to be in touch in these trends, and in order to have our clients good covers for the risk they are all facing to. So.
And is the number of threats, do you feel like you can manage them, that you have the right means, resources, staff to address the issues that you face at this moment, or do you feel understaffed, and is there a need to invest more to prepare for the future?
If you ask me, Miha, for Zbornica Triglav, we have quite strong cyber security team, and for now I think that they are doing a good job. At least we didn't have any big threats, or we successfully deal with it. And as I mentioned before, our colleagues from other markets Europe-wide reports that this year the number of incidents grew very rapidly, and they are talking about 30, 40, 50, even more %. It depends on different markets. So yeah, we are, let's say, when we assess the risks or when we underwrite the risk, we are, of course, even more cautious about it than before. I can for sure say it.
Thank you very much so far. Moving on to Mr. Biro from PwC. So globally, they say that in 2022, there will be 1.8 million jobs connected to tackling cybersecurity risk. So I'm sure you know all the numbers I'm giving you now, but I'm guessing PwC has many numbers of their own. So maybe as a former Ernst & Young alum, so you've just recently joined PwC, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, from September 1st, right? Yeah.
That's correct.
So maybe you now have even a broader scope, because you have 2 major consulting companies, and I'm sure the numbers from EY are still fresh in your head. So maybe if you can just shed some light on how big consulting companies see the development of cyber threats and security in the next year or two?
Mm-hmm. So clearly, there's a rapid involvement within the technology space, right? And one of the main concerns is obviously ransomware, and we actually do see clients sometimes paying, so facilitating crime even to a greater extent. What's concerning is some of these criminals are actually running basically an enterprise, right? So we do see operations basically that are very well orchestrated. We do see the speed of attacks picking up significantly. We have had cases where it took 2 hours basically from the breach to run away with the data, right? And what we see is that most organizations are not equipped to deal with that. So basically what we have established with PwC is a business resilience center and the crisis management center where we ultimately support companies being future-proof. And that requires basically taking a broader look at the threat and weakness combination in what they operate. And that means that we have dedicated researchers, for example, to look at threat vectors, to look at sentiments pertaining to specific clients. We have security operations centers, we review those. We also work on basically how do you develop a full ecosystem, right? Oftentimes we find that companies are dealing with cyber and well, practically cyber-related issues in very much in a siloed way, and that largely inhibits their ability to respond to a crisis, right? So we run, for example, simulations for banks where we stress test their cash position ultimately, but simultaneously also simulate a cyber attack. Yeah? And that basically pinpoints the necessity of individual departments being able to talk each other, and all the effort that is exercised need to be coordinated.
So, and since we have IBM, another big global technology provider of these solutions, do you work with them as a partner, or are there sometimes also a competitor?
Mostly, obviously, we are not a software provider, right? So we definitely work with a number of strategic alliances across the board.
Okay, thank you so far. So moving on to our last but not least panelist, Mr. Kučić from Telecom. Again, a very secretive gentleman. I didn't learn very much from him. I know most of what I know about you is from LinkedIn, so you know that's not very much. But you used to work at DHL, but that was a long time ago. You're basically a telecom veteran, and you've been involved with IT since the beginning of your career. So you were mostly interested in implementing wireless internet networks in urban areas. And that's as far as I got without getting more creepy. So, since Telecom is providing the infrastructure for cyber attacks to happen, how do you work with clients who get attacked? So, mostly one of the more popular ones recently was DDoS attacks, and that can actually jeopardize the whole operation or the whole network in the country. So, your experiences from this year or last year, any interesting cases would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, thank you. So if you just stick to the DDoS attacks, 6 months ago, it seems like serious DDoS attacks are declining and becoming a history, at least in our network. But then it suddenly exploded again in September this year. So we can see now, and we are informed from our partners, that the new DDoS campaign are starting all over again. As every campaign brings something new, we observed that these attacks were very well prepared to cause most possible network or service outage. So We recently also encountered, I have a bit of echo. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes. You are being heard loud and clear.
Okay. We recently encountered a new record that over 100 gigabits DDoS attack. So it's quite a big issue again, and even if the vector of the attack are our business customers, also our network is affected. So, which has been also impact on our other customers. We have the capabilities to mitigate DDoS attacks using different technologies and techniques, but every capability has its limits, so as every technology. As the last option that we use is so-called black holing. That means that we drop all the traffic to a certain destination under attack, but we preserve all the other services and to our customers. So the customers who have our DDoS prevention systems, usually they did not even detect those attacks, but they are really increasing. And this is only one part of the cybersecurity that we are doing. So all other parts are in big increase, and every company would have to really think and assign a significant budget to prevent from cyber attacks, because it's really a new reality.
And as a telecom, what types of attacks are you most worried about?
We are most worried on attacks that we do not see. This is really the most attacks, because we also see with our customers that attacks are happening, and the major issue is if we detect it too late, then the damage is already done. So this is actually the
So for you, it would be early detection is the best measure to protect yourself against cyber attacks?
From my point of view, yes.
And just out of interest, how big is your cybersecurity team at Telecom? How many people?
If you look just for Telecom, every employee of Telecom Slovenia is cybersecurity.
Okay, but if we're more specific.
But for the market, we have a large cybersecurity team, which also we provide cybersecurity for our end customers with our services. Then we have a specific part for the market, and we have a large our own cybersecurity operations center, which has about 20 people. And then we have a team which also is included in our market, and altogether we are coming about 100 people for Slovenian market.
Good. And that number is probably likely to grow?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your answers so far. So moving back again to Mr. Aydin, we can't dodge the issue of COVID this year. So obviously, as with any company, a large portion of your employees are working from home or will be working from home for the foreseeable future. One of the predictions for next year is that cyber criminals will focus specifically on people working from home. So can you tell us how did you tackle this problem? What's changed? Did you change security policies, or how do you now control your employees working from home?
I can start with the financial institutions. They have the outlets, right? So if you exclude the outlets like branches or other offices in the shopping malls, smaller payment centers, if you exclude those, now this year majority are working from home. If you take us as an example, we are 90%, excluding the outlets. I'm talking about the headquarter units, central units. 90% we are working offline. So this creates a lot of workload, to be frank, on the IT teams. But I think the transition pushed us to do this very fast in terms of the policies, internal governance rules. So we adapted it very well. But if I look at the threats, what we have seen and what we are seeing from the partners and from the outside, the most important thing is the awareness of this stuff. So we are investing in that. Other panelists also discussed about this. So we are investing on how to increase the awareness of our staff about these kind of acts like phishing, like ransomware. And this year, I think what I've seen from our numbers, the number of wrong clicks or not reporting the proper stuff decreased significantly. I would say 80–90% decreased significantly because we invested a lot in these trainings. The other part is providing the right and secure access tools for them. So we provided those and endpoint protection. So we invested in those tools so they feel more protected, and actually they're more protected. Also, we are now leveraging more and depending more on the pen tests, focusing mainly on these kind of vulnerabilities coming from work from home, new work from home volumes and the demands. So we are looking into our pen tests, focusing on these areas, and then whatever findings we face, we try to fix them. We just had the last pen test 2 weeks ago. Now we're trying to do it more frequently. Before it was once a year, now we're doing like 3 times, 4 times a year, depending on the area. And there are learnings, so that helps us like do continuous improvement on our solutions. Of course, the other part is we are involving partners. Actually, some of them are here, IBM, Telekom Slovenia, and Microsoft is also very strong in those areas. They're helping us to get the best solutions on the market implemented. So we feel very confident about these partnerships.
And you also have an interesting story, probably different from all the rest of us, because this year you merged 2 banks, and most people were not even in the office. How challenging was this?
Yeah, it's a long story, but I will make it very short. It's been 2 years I joined. In these 2 years, we changed the core banking. The whole core banking changed. And in the second year, we are merging almost 2 equal sized, the second and the third biggest bank in the country. But it's not done yet. Actually, I will join a call in after this meeting, right after this meeting. We are doing the simulation of this real migration of Abanka customers to our platform. That will happen end of this year. We needed to have a longer month end, and that was unfortunately the best option for us. So people will be working over the weekend, over the new year, but it's not that done yet. But we are very confident, and we feel very comfortable about the outcome. We took all the precautions, but work from home, actually, it helped. I expect some hurdles, but fortunately, I will give you very concrete examples. Before COVID, people were reluctant to work when they were in vacation. They wouldn't even reply to an email. But now they just like spare half an hour, maybe even less, 1 hour in some cases. Even if they're in vacation, they check their emails. If they have a task, they just complete it and push it to the next station. So by this, it helped us a lot to progress in this merger activities.
Great. Good to know. So basically, COVID made you more productive.
That's for sure, especially on this project, because when you have a certain goal set from the beginning, these kind of interruptions, that it helped us.
Good job. Thank you. Mr. Svete, so you are public servants, so you deal with sensitive information for the whole country. And again, your people, a lot of them are working from home. What did you have to do to ensure security?
Yes. This is really a good question, because you opened actually the classified information or confidential or secret or top secret information from home. So definitely this is at the moment not possible. And as you are right, so our activities can be divided into 2 groups. two parts. So one part of our job is, of course, more or less open. So we can from home be active on writing the strategy, the analysis, the assessments, everything actually what we can get from open source and what we can then send without any security limitation. Another part of our job, of course, has to do with more sensitive data and information, and this part practically we cannot actually do from home, and all the meetings and all the information which are classified higher than letter stage, so confidential, secret or top secret, everything this this information can be just dealt at our headquarters, and every meeting which has to do with these types of information has to be organized at our headquarters. But nevertheless, we still think that the COVID consequences and working from home really increased our productivity as well. So, as I mentioned before, all this, I would say, more analytical or more cognitive activities, which has to do or have to do with several kinds of the analysis. This is definitely much better to be organized from home. But one thing more, we are, of course, we believe that this type of working, as well we are civil servants, will be kept after the COVID pandemic as well. So we have to develop some platforms much more, I would say, protected, peer-to-peer or end-to-end encrypted, and this will definitely then actually be for us a way how to organize our activities from home, even for lowest, let's say, sensitive classified information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Svete. That's really interesting. Onwards to Mr. Kumar. So I'm guessing IBM has been, you were used to working from home even before this hit this year. So not much has changed, I presume?
Yeah, basically you took my words out of my mouth.
Okay, actually, you can repeat it. You can repeat it. So no new measures. So this year, no new measures, no new security measures for home workers at IBM.
There was some education, like I already mentioned, but in essence, yeah, we were already used to work from home. In March, when I was driving to work, I just received a phone call. Until further notice, you're working from home. So we already have basically a zero trust security policy with multi-factor authentication on every, let's say, channel. We divide it and segment it through people, through devices, etc. We already have bring your own device, let's say, guidelines, which are pretty strict. So basically, this is something that we've been already doing and not much change.
So you can say that for the last 5 years, you've been living in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And Mr. Jakopic, what changed at Triglav?
Well, we, of course, same as our previous speaker, also in Triglav, the majority of people working from home. And but from our insurance product point of view, let me just say that we had that combination of vulnerability of home Wi-Fi networks and human factor is very dangerous for malware attacks because we are quite we are afraid of these malware attacks because on the dark web we can see selling the franchise. We saw the franchise, so you can buy know-how for having this kind of attacks, which is quite it's not good for our business. So, but otherwise, the same as Samo before mentioned, a lot of education and training for the people. I think this is the crucial part for keeping the security of this kind of remote working successfully enough.
So we can say that the biggest threat is still the human factor.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Biro at PwC, I'm guessing you have a whole army of remote workers already. Has anything changed?
Yeah, probably so. And I just would subscribe to what Mr. Jakovic said, right? So any security architecture and any security environment is only as good as the people who are operating it, right? Generally speaking, I think this whole COVID era pushed through a much needed and anticipated technological change and technological advancement that was foreseen to happen. Yeah, the pace of it was much accelerated due to the crisis ultimately, and probably responding to the question, I think what we took away basically as a learning curve and as an experience from a distributed workforce is, surprisingly enough, we found that we were well equipped, meaning that our strategy have worked and is working, but simultaneously it also emphasized the need basically for a cultures-based organization and the values-based organization and how you trust your co-workers. And obviously, just also referring back to Mr. Kumar on zero trust, right? So obviously, we needed to introduce separate measures with regards to the architecture, and we needed to upscale a couple of things. But ultimately, luckily, we were well prepared.
So it's good to trust, but it's even better to verify.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Kučić, you have a workforce of a few thousand people. How are they doing?
Surprisingly, they are doing, or not surprisingly, everything is, all the work is being done. So we were prepared for work from any place. Before this situation came, we just had some logistic issues regarding the equipment, but we solved this quite quickly. I would like to refer more of the network that we have to provide for all the people work from home. And we see that in Slovenia we have I believe, really good network from all the operators that everything is doing well. So people can work from home, the network is stable. The amount of data is increased enormously, but we were all the time we were monitoring the data, and we were increasing our capacities day to day, and we were actually on alert all the time. Regarding people and security, we emphasized the users, or we did educating the users what they should do or what they should not do. As Mr. Aitak already said, that we were focused on informing our users what is the right policy, what to do and what not to do, because at the end, between the monitor and the keyboard, there's always a user. So this was actually the key focus on our employees in this time, and we've done a lot of online educations, and the situation is improving all the time, but this is actually the process that will be going on in the future. And with every education that we have, or every course that we take, the situation is improving.
Thank you very much. Dear gentlemen, we're coming towards the end of our panel. So there's only one thing left to do. We need to declare the winner or the end results. So again, this was on the fly maths while I was speaking to you, so there might be a few errors, but you know, this is not like national elections, so let's just see where we stand. So the most digitally paranoid person would be our banker, Mr. Aytaç Aydin, which I think is great because I need to know that, you know, where I keep my money, that they're being very safe about data and cybersecurity. But then, in order not to feel too petrified, Mr. Smole from Ministry of Public Affairs and Mr. Jakopić from Triglav are the two people who are the least digitally paranoid, which again gives me some confidence because I know the actuaries at insurance company, they know what the real threats are and they know how to catch. Basically, I can feel that we're properly protected. And on the other hand, if the government feels like they're in control of the digital threats that we're facing, I can sleep safer at night. So with that, dear gentlemen, I'd like to thank you again for your contributions, for your time, for your insights, and I wish you all successful end of the year. Stay healthy, and hopefully no security breaches in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stay safe. Have nice holidays.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our sponsors again for supporting us at this event. Telekom Slovenije, Triglav, Src, Unistar Pro, the British Embassy in Ljubljana, and I hope I didn't forget anyone. And ladies and gentlemen, with these ridiculous things on our heads, we would like to wish
time
you.
Of the year.
We would like to wish you Merry Christmas.
A COVID-free New Year.
Stay healthy, lots of health.
Wealth and good fortune.
Lots of mulled wine and cookies.
No headaches. Great presents.
And all the best.
And I'm going to say something else because I want to have the last word.
Go ahead.
Barbara, thank you for this year. I wish you a Merry Christmas as well. Happy New Year. And hopefully next year we won't have to do this.
Thank you, Micha, and great moderation, by the way.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Cheers.